Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and this is Calgary's podcast with on Canada's Podcast Network. Joining me today is Robin Kovitz, who is president and CEO of Baskits. Now, I know that Robin is based in Toronto, but she has a long history of being in Calgary, so that's why she's on Calgary's podcast. Thanks for joining us, Robin.
Thanks for having me, Mario. Such a treat to be here.
Well, let's talk about Baskits. Tell me a little bit about what the company is and what you guys do.
Sure. So we're Canada's leading purveyor of fine gifts. We really connect people through the joy of gifting. And our gift baskets and boxes are perfect for any occasion, like the birth of a new baby or a big life accomplishment, or even just a birthday. We ship all across Canada and the US. In fact, we send lots of gifts to Calgary, my hometown where I was born and raised. And we really aspire to make wow factor gifting quick and easy by sourcing the highest quality products, using best-in-class systems, and always providing top-notch customer service.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the growth of the company over the last few years. And you've won a few recognition in that area as well.
Yes. So I purchased the company in 2014, and it was at a time when I just had my first child and I was receiving a lot of gift baskets. And I was really interested in the space. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if this industry was shaken up a little bit, and sort of the product was elevated and the process was easier? And so I had the great fortune of finding this platform to acquire. And then I've acquired some competitors, and we're really trying to build it into the leader in Canada, and sort of updating the space. And so, yeah, we've grown considerably since 2014, and very pleased to be recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in Canada 2 years in a row.
Okay, let's backtrack for a second here, Robin, and talk about that history behind 2014 coming around and you buying the company. What were you doing before then, and maybe why were you looking at buying a company?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Calgary in the Southwest, and grew up sort of evenings and weekends around my father's business, which was in protein manufacturing and distribution. I came out east to study finance at Queen's University. And then I went to Bay Street. I think, like a lot of Calgarians, I was sort of intrigued by Bay Street, and I worked in private equity and investment banking for many years. And then I turned, the ripe old age of 30, like many women, where you reach that inflection point where I wanted to start a family, but also couldn't reconcile how that would jive with my career. And so I sort of thought back to fondly on my days growing up in Calgary, walking around my dad's business and thinking, wouldn't it be neat if I could run a small business on my own where I could bring the baby, and I would create the rules. So I could set my own hours. The naive me, right, that thought being a business owner would be so easy. So fast forward, that was the goal, was to have more flexibility. Really, I wanted to work from home before the whole world started working from home.
Oh, okay, then super. Can you talk a little bit about the family business in Calgary, what it was, and how you were involved maybe at a young age with it?
Sure. So my father and his partner's business was called Centennial Foods. And it was started in 1967. It was purchased by my grandfather in the 70s and his partner. And my father and his partner really grew it to be a huge company. It was several $100 million in sales and employed several hundred people. And they were really innovative in the hamburger space. So, for example, they made all the hamburgers for QSR chains like A&W, and then also at grocery retail, like, for example, the Thick and Juicy Burger was something that they developed in partnership with Loblaws.
All right. Why didn't you continue on with that business? In that business?
So my father and his partner ended up selling the business in, we always had this thing that the family, it's not guaranteed that you'd be offered a spot in the family business. You have to go out and learn something outside and show your value, and then apply to work for the family business. And so I was sort of on that journey when actually my father and his partners sold the business. And so it wasn't an opportunity to join full time.
All right. And when we look at Baskits, what's your vision for the future for the company?
I would love to grow Baskits to be a large company like my father's. My dream has always been to hit 100 million in sales. I think, especially right now, it's such an important time that we're learning that human connection is more important than ever. And I think I love that Baskits is a vehicle to connect people. I see, gifts going to Calgary for parents sending it to their kids who are at U of C, who they really miss. And it's just a beautiful, fun business of connecting people. And so I want to continue that. And I also want to create a really fun, great place to work. The kind of business that wasn't available to me, which is why I left my career on Bay Street, a place where, you can talk openly about wanting to be a mama and working and that kind of thing. So my goal is I'm here for the long term. I want to build this into one of Canada's great companies. I have an incredible team we're continuing to build and just keep making people happy through the art of gifting.
So when you made that transition back in 2014, what was the biggest challenge for you in making that transition from what you were doing to becoming an entrepreneur, becoming an owner of a company?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it was night and day, right, Mario? Because it was like, I went from being an analyst or an investment banker to managing people, and often managing people much older than me, in an industry that I was still learning. And so it was quite a shock. And then also, in small business where there's the, cash flow management and all other challenges that you're sort of dealing with all at once, drinking from the fire hose. And I think with entrepreneurship through acquisition, which is the way that I became an entrepreneur, which is by buying a business as opposed to starting one, I think you have the added challenge that it was someone else's baby. And so there's a team that was built by the former owners and a set of systems and processes that were developed that way that are now all changing. And so I found it to be quite a shock. Definitely was not a great CEO when I was sort of thrust into it, but I've worked really hard over the last 8 years to really become a great leader.
And being an entrepreneur, Robin, what are some of the key things that you love about being an entrepreneur?
It's such an interesting career path. And the reason why I like to speak about it is because I really do want to encourage other women, especially women who want more life flexibility, to look at this as a career path. And in many ways, it's similar to becoming a mother, right? There's so much multitasking and you're on all the time. So I think what I love about it is the excitement. I think every day is different. And if you enjoy solving problems, you're just constantly solving interesting and new dilemmas and problems. The hard part, of course, is the ups and downs. And, every day there's some sort of disappointment or problem I can't solve, or someone saying no about something. And you have to really learn how to roll with it, let it roll off you and get back up.
What about, some of the biggest challenges, I guess, you faced as being an owner? And obviously you've gone through some difficult times in the world, so, with the pandemic and stuff. But what have been, some of the biggest hurdles or obstacles that you've had to overcome being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, another great question. I mean, just so many. And when I was, in an office tower downtown, I didn't imagine these types of scenarios. So, for example, our Instagram account was hijacked by pirates and ransomed, and we had to pay a ransom in Bitcoin. You can't even write a movie with these things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We had a container on that boat coming from overseas that caught on fire and sunk. Just like the weirdest, strangest business problems. And so, then quickly figuring out how to make and procure 40,000 bows without a lot of notice. So I think, there are endless sort of interesting and crazy situations that I'm constantly dealing with.
Throughout this journey, I guess, and becoming an entrepreneur for yourself, besides perhaps your father, did you have any other mentors out there that either personally or mentors that, through books or something like that you kind of followed their advice?
Yeah. So I'm really big on sort of working, a lot of people work on their strength or play to their strengths. I really work on my weaknesses. And so throughout my whole life, I've been so lucky to have tons of mentors in different areas who've really helped me get to where I am. I think in terms of entrepreneurs, I really admire, of course, there are many, but in terms of female entrepreneurs, I really look up to Sarah Blakely from Spanx in the US. She's built a $1 billion business her way and really shown that there is some value in sort of the female style of leadership. I look up to Whitney Hurd in the US too, who just took Bumble public with a baby on her lap. In Canada, Michelle Romana and Joanna from Nix is amazing, and Michelle from Clearco. I think it's a new, exciting time where these female entrepreneurs are changing the rules, and it's going to be really exciting to see what comes out of the next 10 years.
Well, you mentioned female leadership styles. How do you think you're different, being a female? How do you think you're different in terms of your managing of people compared to, say, a male counterpart?
Yeah, I think gender is pervasive. And so, we're at such an interesting point in time where we're learning about sort of the spectrum of gender. But I think, traditionally female style, I can be maternalistic. I can be hot-headed. I don't know if that's a gender thing, but I think being a mother in particular has really helped and influenced my management style. I really identify with certain things that like Adam Grant or Simon Sinek have written, and just about, actually, I think some of the leadership philosophy is really rooted in military leadership, that you really have a responsibility as a service leader. And if you don't care for the people you're leading, you don't deserve to lead them. And I see that sort of model as being quite feminine, I guess, whereas, I genuinely care about my team. I want to help them be the best they can be. When I was a young CEO, I think I used to get frustrated or angry. And now it's more like talking to your child, right? What's wrong? What's going on? Why did you miss this deadline? So that real sort of maternalistic, I think, is a feminine approach to management.
Would you encourage your children to become entrepreneurs?
I don't know. I'm still in the middle of it. Can we talk in 10 years?
Yeah, exactly. What advice would you give, though, if somebody young, well, not necessarily young, but just somebody new wants to become an entrepreneur? What advice would you give them?
I would say to just go for it. I think I have the great privilege of counseling a lot of MBA students and other people who are thinking about entrepreneurship. And often I find, that you can get stuck in that paralysis of what if I fail, or what if I can never get another job? And I would say, some part of, obviously calculated risk, but some part of this, you just have to believe that you're going to be successful and go all in and give it your best shot for X period of time. My advice would be to just go for it and get out of that analysis paralysis of all the things that could go wrong.
Do you think there's certain qualities that and personality types that make for a good entrepreneur?
I do. And I think some of the key qualities that I think you need to be a good entrepreneur aren't my natural strengths. And so I'm constantly fighting and working to try and find coaches and mentors to help me improve. For example, I think you have to be really good at sort of half doing things. Like done is better than perfect. I'm naturally more of a perfectionist. I'd like to read things over and over and make sure they're perfect. I think as an entrepreneur, you don't have that luxury, and it's more important to be thoughtful about your output. Obviously, you can't be careless, but really balancing that, better to get things executed over having them perfect. The whole concept of the MVP sort of in venture capital. So I think, being comfortable with sort of doing things at a high level and executing, a bias to action, I think makes for a very strong entrepreneur.
Wanted to go back a little bit to motherhood because I found it interesting because so for all our listeners here, I talked to Robin recently for another story, and I just found her story quite fascinating about how motherhood changed, feelings about the careers and career path. And coincidentally, Robin, a couple of weeks after we talked, I had almost the exact same conversation with a lady in Calgary named Emma May, who was a lawyer, also a very strong political person. She was almost like in Premier Jim Prentice's government as an advisor type role with the Prentice. And then she started up a real estate company, being a realtor. But everything changed, over time, and because of motherhood. And she is now a fashion retailer. She runs a company called Sophie Grace. But I thought that was an interesting story. It was very similar to yours, in many ways. Do you think we're going to see more and more opportunities now for women who become mothers to look at entrepreneurship as a career path, as opposed to being a lawyer, being an investment banker, or that 9 to 5, 17-hour a day job type thing.
Yeah, I think we're at a very exciting time with the rise of things like Shopify, which make it so lowers the barrier to entry to starting a business, and the sort of rise of the side hustle, where a lot of people are doing little shops and things on their own, Etsy, for example. I really do think that women are uniquely suited to be entrepreneurs, and I think we're at a point in time of society and technology and information where it's sort of a perfect moment in time, and I'm excited to see what the next 10, 20 years looks like. I mean, 10 years ago, when I set out to do this, there was no way I could have raised money, Mario. Like, I would have been laughed out of the room. And to see someone like Joanna Griffiths from Nix raise $53 million while pregnant with twins is just mind blowing. And I have an 11-year-old daughter, so I'm very excited to see what this means for her. I am so excited to see what the next level of entrepreneurship means for women. I think a few things still need to continue to evolve. I think, for example, the venture capital world has done a great job of exposing the bias that exists and how much more difficult it is for women to raise venture capital. And I think something that I'm working on is really exploring how much more difficult it is for women to raise debt capital too. I think there is sort of an inherent bias of, can you do this while you're a mom, while you're this gender bias that I think really is prevalent, that hopefully will erode over the next decade.
Okay, super. So, Robin, before we sign off here, I'm just curious. You're obviously quite busy, being an entrepreneur and owner of a national, international brand, so to speak, and obviously being a mother and with children. Do you have time to do anything else? Like, do you have any other interests besides work and family? Or
I do. I can't pretend to have a lot of balance right now in my life, because between my kids and my business, which I affectionately call my third child, there's not a lot, and my husband, there's not a lot of time left over. I love playing soccer. I love watching my kids play sports, and I really love designing. So Baskits fills that sort of itch for me. So a lot of the sort of designs and things are more my passion and hobby and spare time, in quotes.
So you do much of the designing as well?
Yes, I do.
Wow. Where does the inspiration come for these?
All over the place. Pinterest, walking down the street, House and Home magazine, love Linda Reeves. I just think I'm inspired to come up with really high quality things that I would love to be gifted.
Okay, then. So that's kind of using the both sides of the brain, I guess, right? The creative side and the logical side, right?
Yes, design is my hobby for sure.
Okay, super then. Anything else you wanted to mention, Robin, before we close today?
I think I just wanted to thank you again for this opportunity, Mario, and also the article that you did, which was so lovely. And I wanted to kind of close with just a little note for Calgarians. I remember, being in Calgary and being so intimidated by the rest of the world, because it seems like sometimes it can feel like Calgary is small and that the rest of the world is unachievable. And I just want to say, go for it. Here I moved to Toronto and made a go of it. I know so many Calgarians who have moved to other New York or other big cities and done things. So obviously Calgary is an incredible city, and if you want to stay there, that's great too. But if you have aspirations of going somewhere, don't stop yourself. Go for it.
All right, super. Thanks, Robin, for joining us today.
Thanks, Mario.
All right, that was Robin Kovitz, who is president and CEO of Baskits. I'm Mario Tanaguzzi. This has been Calgary's podcast on Canada's Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us today.